Hello, and welcome to the Tyke Holiday APIM Extravaganza.
So today, we're looking through the lens of APIs in order to take a look at how API technologies can meet today's pressing socio and economic challenges. As we harness technology to solve society's greatest challenges and threats affecting the global community, it's necessary for technology to be more sustainable, more accessible, and ethical than ever before. And so today we're going to take a look at how do we foster diversity, equity, and inclusion through technology. And naturally, the fintech space is a great place to start. So today we are joined by RubyX co-founders, Denis and Sitao. Welcome, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. Denis, tell us a little bit about RubyX and its mission.
Yeah, hello, hi Zoe, and hi everybody. Thank you for having us today. RubyX is a fintech startup working in the financial inclusion space. So we created the company a few years ago with this idea that today small enterprises and micro entrepreneurs need to be facilitated their access to financial services and financing solutions, credit in particular. There's a long history behind us of microfinance institutions who've been doing microcredit for many years, developing very interesting methodology based on the humans and creating the human relationship between these microbanks and the entrepreneurs. But what we observe today, and in particular accelerated with the COVID crisis, is that many entrepreneurs and SMEs have embraced platforms for doing their job, selling or getting paid or finding jobs, all different kind of things. So we figured out that today the future of microfinance can also be in providing them with loans directly on the platform they use for doing their business and using their historical data on this platform as well as their links with these platforms. So the fact that they are, let's say, of the platform to be able to finance them. So that's
Denis, so can you tell us a little bit about some of the unique challenges and problems facing those individuals and small to medium-sized businesses in emerging markets in terms of actually unlocking credit and the credit that they need to drive their businesses forwards?
Yeah, sure. Just maybe sizing the problem. We are talking in Africa only about a credit gap estimated at about $330 billion, right? So it means that probably around private sector gets about a fourth of the credit that it gets in places like Europe, right? So the situation is huge. And in Africa in particular, and in West Africa in particular, small enterprises struggle really to access loans from formal banks or even microfinance banks, right? So the solution very often for them is only friends and family, which is very cumbersome, which is heavy in terms of social pressure, which is not discreet. It comes with all sorts of ties. So very complicated situation. Now, in reality, why is that? It's because banks aren't, because basically the economy is informal, right? And the amounts are small. Economy informal means in order to get to understand the business and understand the creditworthiness of the business, you need a lot of work, a lot of time spent by credit officer on the field. That's what the formal microfinance industry is about, sending people on the ground and understand the business by seeing it with your own eyes and touching it with your own hands. It's small ticket lending. which then means also it's not really so profitable, because if you have €1 million to lend in Europe, you will lend it maybe to 2 companies. Here you will have to lend it to 1,000 companies, right? So the cost side and the profitability side are not so good. So this is why this credit gap is not taken. Now, when we come in, what we are talking about is being able not to send people on the ground, because we basically see the small enterprises data on the platforms they use. So we collect the data without having to support the cost of sending officers on the ground. We also much more scalable, because we can implement the platform and then go in the entire country, even in the entire continent, without having to send people over there, right? So, and then the second thing is also on the profitability, because on the small tickets, because every single loan doesn't have a huge marginal cost for us. It's just a little bit more work, a little bit more load on the server. So it's not a big deal. So automating this is very important, also in accessing, in unlocking these markets. We do embedded lending. So we provide the loan on the platforms, right? So if you are an e-commerce merchant, your e-commerce marketplace will push you our loan offer.
And how have you worked with people to find out about these challenges that they face? You've talked about traveling around and meeting people. How has that informed how you at RubyX have decided to go to market?
Yeah, so it's really these little interviews. So we would go in the morning with a list of people. We would know a little bit their financial habits. We would meet them at their place, and we would start talking for an hour, 2 hours about their financial habits, about what they do to manage a difficult situation. And then they would explain that we would do small mock-ups, show them with some offers, ask them how long they would keep the money, what they would do with the money, what would be the alternatives, what they are doing now, and trying to really dig into their financial habits to understand the reality between it. Because when it's not an easy thing to talk about money with people all around the world, right? Because they will first, it's very quickly if you're not doing it well, it turns into a negotiation exercise. Like they're gonna pretend they can borrow more or less, and they are not, because they think maybe they can get something from that interview, where all you want to get is some insights. Yeah, so these type of interviews with mock-ups, and cross-checking it also with a lot of experiments and A/B testing, right? We've implemented some products just to see what happens, just to measure some intake and repayment rates, and then go back and talk again to people and say, okay, you've taken that product. What did you think about? What was easy? What did you understand from it? How did you use the money? Why did you pay so early? And that sort of thing.
And Sitao, it'd be great to bring you back in and focus on a question about really telling the story of how you came to be using the Tyke gateway, what you're using it for, and why you chose it.
I think at the beginning, our initial clients are still traditional microfinance institutions. We developed this platform with only user interface to interact with. Then later, we come across some new clients, which are digital platforms. These digital platforms, they have the technology capacity to integrate and interact with our platform through the APIs. That's why we started thinking about to provide the APIs to these kind of clients. I think for open source, it's more transparent to us, and sometimes, the code is the best documentation, especially when we understand the language of the open source project. So we can also participate in the open source project the Tyke API gateway. So this really one of the very important factors for us, and it also supports native. It has good support on Kubernetes. That means it's very easy for us to deploy and manage the resources with our existing deployment pipeline.
So that sounds like, gateway deployment, you have K8s behind microservices. And so it's a classic back end for front end, simplification of the front end, so that people, businesses can embed your services. Is that correct?
Right. And also in the back end, we're orchestrator of the services from different vendors. For example, we also use the services from Google Cloud, and we also, in the backend, we also brings another open source solution to manage our loans. We will also integrate with other payment providers to provide the payment services in our platform. With all these different services and APIs, internally and externally, we want to provide our client a unique gateway to publish all these services.
Can you speak a little bit about the importance of developer experience when you're exposing your APIs? So I'm presuming that as well as actually making your APIs available, you need to make them easy to adopt. How do you achieve that at RubyX?
Currently, I think one is that because in the backend, there are lots of services from different vendors. So we first offer a uniformed gateway for them to access to. And we use open API documentation so they can consume these APIs and understand the APIs through our portal of documentation. Then I think one of the very important thing is that we also orchestrate some of the steps to call the APIs. For example, when our clients create a loan in our system, they don't need to first create the client, then check the offers or do different validations. So as a service provider, we actually did a lot of these steps in the back end. So we only provide them a simple API for them to create a loan or consume the loan.
So initially we were really focused on the AI, right? AI was everything that mattered for us. That's where we started. We were excited about that, but very quickly we realized for some of the business and to really go the next step and be impactful and get some actual results, it was just not enough because we were excited about it, but our partners were saying, what can we do? How do we actually issue a loan, right? We said, but go and figure out with a bank. We give you the loan decision making, all the data to manage the risk. Now you only have to go and meet the bank. But then going in, meeting a bank, referring your user to a bank partner was breaking the whole instantaneity of the value proposition, because it would take the bank even for the fastest one about a week to process the application and move forward, just inputting the loan details into their system, creating the KYC. That's where really the API became so important to create a real lending as a service experience for our platform clients, whereby they could in real time bring these offers onto their platform, but also directly act on the offer, transform it into a loan, and credit the amount directly on the customer's wallet. So that has been very transformative in our business. That's when we've been able to call ourselves lending as a service, a full provider of that experience.
And it basically brings out the complexity of who you're actually designing APIs for, and also how you how they need to interact with and understand the data in terms of developers, in terms of making the best use of your APIs.
So our conclusion, in fact, was that REST APIs were a must-have, but that it would be nice to also propose on top the ones that are handling the orchestration for you. You want to call us straight into our components, our objects, here you can do it. But if you want to just say, I have this loan and I want it to disburse and I don't want to know how you do this, I just want to know the end results, then you can also use that orchestrated API to just make it easier.
Yeah, actually, internally, we have tried to use part of the GraphQL as API, but I think most of the clients we are facing, they are still using REST APIs. Yeah. So that's why we currently, we will first just offer our APIs with REST standard, but we will think, I'm actually thinking about later to add another layer to on top of the REST APIs, so we can offer GraphQL. Because one of the great advantage of GraphQL is that the API consumer, they only get the data they need. This is sometimes very useful with low bandwidth in Africa when there's when the internet is not good. It saves a lot of this kind of data transactions and data transferred on the internet. So actually, this is something we are seriously considering. I think this is also one of the points I chose Tyke API Gateway, because right now Tyke also supports GraphQL.
That's great. I didn't know you were going to say that, but we're very pleased to hear it. Denis, if you had a chance to think.
I was listening to Sitao. What was the question? Sorry.
So I guess we were future gazing. I was asking about what's coming up for RubyX in 2023.
Yeah. Okay. So 2022 has been the year where we have really created the concept, launched the platform, started our first clients that are non-lenders, right? We have other clients on the microfinance space, but in terms of the digital platform, 2022 is the launch year. And so now that everything is becoming a reality and that the first projects are here, we want to see 2023 as the real scale year, right? So not many more clients on each of the platforms we've already partnered with. And then a lot of what's going to be very interesting for us also is to see how we are able to create growing and sane loan portfolios on these platforms, right? So it's not just about starting the project, it's also about managing that. In the lending space, in the lending business, you need to manage growth together with managing risk, and that trade-off is going to be what's going to really be our focus for 2023. Yeah.
So Denis and Sitao, that is great. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us about RubyX. It's been really good to understand exactly what your mission is and where you're trying to get to. We wish you every success, and we're really delighted to be part of that success and that you're using Tyke's Gateway. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zoe.